Hey guys, before we get into today's episode, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to our level 3 courses. Wem and I tried to sit down and do some big swanky radio advert and it's just not us. So I'm just going to chat about it for a minute. So our level 3 training is the same price as some other courses out there where you just get 5 days and you are out the door, do your coursework on your own. Our course is, for the same price, is 10 days of training. So for our May cohort, that's 5 days. And then we have a bit of a month off to just let that settle. We come back for a weekend, maybe do a bit of camping. Then we have a bit more time off and then we come back for another weekend. With the September group, we do 5 Mondays starting in September. Then we have a bit of a break. Then we come back in the new year and do another 5. So we're really like focusing on building community as we go. We didn't really want to do that like conveyor belt thing. We could be doing, a level 3 course every school holiday, banging them out, off you go. But we don't want to do that. We do Zoom calls throughout the year. We do loads of like cohort, community building sessions and stuff to help people with what they're doing. And that means that we want to do it well rather than doing lots of it. So we're trying to help people do that. And we're also really big on this community aspect. And we found that people not only find the course easier to do in terms of workload, but also easier to do emotionally when they do it with somebody they already know. So to try and encourage that, we're doing a train together kind of offer. So if you and someone else sign up to do the course with us together, we'll give you some money off your course because we found that the success rate is much higher. People are much happier while they're doing the course, and it makes our life easier as tutors because, happy students, motivated students, we're all kind of getting on together. So if you want to be part of a community rather than just being put through a conveyor belt, then have a look at our website. It goes to myforestschooltraining.co.uk. That'll take you to the Children of Forest website, and you can go from there, get your application in, and join our communities. So on with the podcast.
I'm Wem.
And I'm Lewis.
This is the Forest School Podcast.
Let's go!
Hello, listeners.
What are you doing in a voice for?
Hello, listeners. This is my voice. This is my summer holiday voice.
Oh, is it? This is it now?
Yeah.
For the whole summer?
Yeah. No.
Oh, right.
It's because my brain is broken. Because there's a heat wave. The temperature's gone apart.
It's only the start of a heat wave, mate.
Holy moly.
It's only just begun.
All of those practitioners working in the hot, hot sun, the hot, hot woods.
Yeah.
Respect, keep in there. It's a whole new level to the job, don't you think?
Wear a wet bandana, mate. Telling you, game changer. Soak it in some water, whip it on. When it dries off, soak it in some water, whip it on. Saves you loads of water.
And breathe out.
Shave your head. Shave your head works.
But also, it's about, isn't it? It's about helping all those people that find heat difficult.
Yeah.
Cranky and they can't think straight and anyway, listeners, we've got a great podcast for you.
Yes.
Coming up right now with
Emma Burl.
Who got in contact with us, and she is an artist, educator, and author. And she's written this fab book called Earth Colour, which we are talking about with her today. And it was lovely to chat with her and hear about the process of how the book was made and created and sort of aims behind it. And we give it a bit of a review of how we found using the book.
It might be the longest we've ever gone from. I don't know if anybody would ever tell, but sometimes we go quite quickly from idea to recording. Sometimes it's less than 5 minutes between idea and recording. But this is a long one because Emma sent us these books with enough time that we could kind of really get our teeth in and go, right, this is supposed to be over a couple of months. We're going to give it a couple of months. Yeah. We actually did our homework.
We did. We tested some of the book stuff with groups in the woods, so you can hear about how that went. And I think that's all I want to say about it at this point. Yes.
Lush. Well, let's get into it then. Enjoy. Look, I have it with me, and I have all the clicky.
Yay!
Things.
Or it looks well thumbed.
Yeah.
It is. But before,
sorry, you need to explain to the listeners what this is.
No, I don't. You do that, and I waffle.
You go. Here it is. It's got the clicky things, and Emma says it looks well thumbed. and it just sounds very dodgy. So you just have to explain, Lewis, what you're holding.
What am I holding? I'm holding a copy of Emma's book, Earth Colour, an 8-week art course for nature connection, which Emma very kindly sent us both a copy
Yes.
to have a look through and to flick through. And the reason it is well thumbed is because I have taken it lots of places. And yeah, that means things get smashed up in a bag, don't they?
Yeah.
It reminds me a bit of like, what's the Emma, do you know the Coyote Guide? Sorry to immediately talk about a different book.
Don't.
It's a book that's about like, it's more in the bushcrafty wilderness adventure type thing, but on the first page it's all about like, burn this book, you don't need this book, don't get attached to it, move on. But anyway, let's talk about your book, your lovely book, Emma.
Yeah, thank you so much for getting in touch and sending us copies.
Oh, you're welcome. As I said, it was a bit of a sound track while I was writing the book. I quite often enjoyed listening to you two chatting, and so I feel like you were in some ways filtering into the book, although you didn't know it at the time.
That's both magical and worrying.
Really? Did you hate the book?
No, we hate ourselves.
Yeah. It's like, what mad rubbish were we chatting? maybe the book.
No, you're very helpful, because you also, because of your book reviews, which I think are really interesting and thoughtful, the things that you had to say, and they were definitely like little pointers, like, oh yeah, don't do that then. And that obviously is a good approach. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, it is an incredible. I mean, you know, headline at the top, an incredible book, an incredible piece of work, an incredible. I don't know how to, because this is gonna sound super right. We're going wanky at the start, right? It feels like more than a book, Emma. This feels like, I don't know how to describe it. When have you got words that I haven't?
Well, I was thinking about it and thinking how generous it is, and I was looking through your website and I was looking at all the things that you're interested in, and looking at so I haven't read Soul Colour, which is your other book, and please correct me if I get this wrong, but it seemed to me that Soul Colour was about kind of marrying art and meditation and mindfulness and a lot about mental health, and then Earth Colour is still doing that, but through nature connection as well, and that you seem to be quite passionate about sort of engaging people in art and mindfulness and nature in a way that's very generous. So I was looking at your website and looking at you have a little tutorial about mixing watercolor, which I'm in no way an artist, but I have played with watercolor loads, but never known how to mix paint in that way. And obviously you run courses as well, or have done, and workshops and things, and that you're kind of offering this information for free, and there's things on your website about, if you don't have the book, here's where you can find out this information or whatever, and it just seems to me like the book comes from a really caring and generous place, that you're trying to really, you're obviously passionate about art and nature connection, and you're trying to ignite that fire for other people in a very gentle hand-holding way that doesn't feel like, do it this way, do it that way. It's more about, I mean, this is another tangent that I kind of want to talk quite a lot about today, but one thing that Lewis and I both noticed through our forest school practice is that we're sort of reaching out to adults a lot more with the activities that we provide and the sessions that we plan. So sessions that are for families, rather than just kind of it being all about the kids. So often parents might expect that they're just coming to a toddler group and it's for their toddler, and actually we've noticed that really from the early days that we'd be doing a craft activity, and the amount of times that adults would say, oh, I'm rubbish at this. Oh, I can't, I'm all thumbs, I can't do this. Oh, no. And you just kind of give them a paintbrush, or just have a go. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And I feel like your book is in a really great place to kind of, support people with that. Is that something that you were thinking of while you were writing it? Have I kind of got that right? Or is this
Definitely. I think because I was a secondary school teacher, but I kind of wondered, like, why do we stop being creative when we become adults? And then I actually ended up working with much older people, mainly retired and elderly, for a few years, and so much loss of confidence that happens as we get older. And even for myself as well, I feel like I wish I'd gone to forest school and I wish I'd learned all these things. So well, it's very nice of you to say that it's generous, but it was also quite a selfish idea to write that book, because I was like, I want to learn all these things and do these things and research these things and experience playing with nature through art. So I thought, well, might as well write a book about it and share that with people.
How closely, so for people that haven't come across the book, so it is a structured course, it's 8 weeks, this is do this today, this today, this today. Does that, you're saying that you were sort of going on your own journey of learning all these things, how closely does the book follow your own journey, or did you go back and go, well, actually I wish I'd known that earlier, or I'd moved this to the end?
Yeah, it's a good question. For structure, I decided to begin with what I know. So the first chapter is exploring mindfulness and ways of engaging with nature that draw on mindfulness teachings and traditions, because that's something that I feel quite confident with already. But yeah, then I sort of got a little bit more adventurous, and I decided to go through the chakras, the energy chakras, starting with the element of earth, which is connected to the root chakra. So I was quite interested in that emotional connection between elements of nature and the sort of emotional qualities that we can experience and feel in ourselves, in our own bodies. So I kind of working through the element of earth in the first chapter and exploring that and finding ways to engage with earth on an emotional and sort of heartful level. And then working up through, so the second chakra is associated with water, the third one is associated with fire, and then air, and then kind of moving up. So that gave me a bit of structure for exploring, but definitely it wasn't like a sort of completely linear process. There was things I did that didn't work so well, and things I had a few. It was difficult because it was a pandemic, so I wasn't able to practice some of my ideas as much as I normally would on students. But I had a lovely young person that I was working with for A-level, that I was taking her through her A-levels, because she was she had some exceptional needs. I was able to work with her right through the pandemic, including through all the lockdowns. So we had these lovely sessions in the woods where I would basically just try things out with her, or sometimes we'd figure things out together.
Amazing. And you worked with some other artists and people through the book. Tell us about that. What did you?
Yeah, that was a real dream, just to kind of approach people whose work I admire and get to know them a bit and include them in the book. It definitely has its challenges working with other people in terms of administrative herding cat type.
Yeah, tell me about it, mate.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I think it was really enriched the book, because the first book I wrote, it was all, it obviously isn't all me. I'm standing on the shoulders of many giants, but yeah, to have direct input from different artists was really fantastic. And an artist who work in different disciplines that are not my areas of expertise. And have the chance to play with all these different mediums, clay and inks and things that I wouldn't normally use so much.
Yeah.
How involved were they with knowing, because some of them are the guest artist ones, they sort of pop out of the book because they are different, not partly because they're some of the only pages that have photos. A lot of the book is your own illustrations. So you come across one, it's a bit like, oh, what's this? This is a different thing today. Did they have did those artists, did you kind of work together and go, this is the whole book, this is what I'm doing? Or did they give you their page and then you said, okay, I reckon that goes in Earth Week, or I reckon that goes in Fire Week?
So I talked to them a bit about the structure, and I gave them all, so like quite a few of them, I knew they were particularly interested in water or watery painting, or in earth and clay, and had these quite sort of earthy themes, or fire. And so I kind of selected artists who I felt fitted with these different energies and themes. And then I said, I would like you to contribute to this chapter. But then I did more or less let them do their thing. And no, they hadn't really seen the book because the book didn't really exist. It was all just notes and piles of paper and paintings. And so yeah, it was a little bit of a surprise to some of them, I think, to see the final book and where I'd fitted them in. Yeah, I mean, did you find it a little bit surprising, you said? Or
not surprised, just different, because like when we're saying at the start, the book is it is holding your hand in a really lovely way, in that, to the point where I was going through the first few bits. I think the first few bits are, sorry, I'm flicking through it if you can hear me flicking. The first few bits are all really like quite cerebral. It's just kind of draw the things you can hear, paint some smells, like, but done in a very, I can't think of the word. It's like, I want to say it feels irreverent, but in a good way. Like, not about like the product is the main input. Starting with the first week of this is not about what you make. It's just about go and do this nature connection thing. Don't worry about what ends up on the page. And I found myself going, oh, this is great, but the kind of the logical bit of my brain's going, I'd quite like to learn some techniques. And then I swear the next page was like, here are 3 techniques for your watercolors. And I was like, got it. So that's the sign of, I think, a well-structured, which is amazing to do at a distance. You didn't know what your learners are going through once you put the book out. You're just kind of, but it came at exactly the right point. So it does feel like a coherent journey.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to hear. Yeah.
I really wanted to talk about that whole approach that you write about like mistakes and like beautiful failures and like all those kind of it's okay, basically, and you can kind of be told that, but there's something about reading it in a book and it being like a very humble process, and just like, this is just about playing. It's playing, isn't it?
It's completely playing. Yeah. It's not about becoming an expert or impressing other people or any of that stuff. It's about creative ways to engage with the world around us and with ourselves. And I feel like there's a lot of resonance. That's why I enjoy your podcast so much. There's a lot of resonance with your approach to being in the forest and working with people.
Yeah, and that's interesting you say, like, it's not about becoming an expert or impressing anyone. And I think the older you get, many of us are only really doing those, it's like, why are you doing this thing? Anything, like to make money or to like gain knowledge and become more expert at it, or to impress someone, and I think we're all guilty if we're, even if we enjoy creative things, of going, oh yeah, that's very Instagrammable, isn't it? I'll just put a lovely little Instagram photo of me doing this like really impressive artworks. And, and that's not why you're doing it. This is just like a gift to yourself. And I think that's quite a rare approach, and to allow yourself to have the time to do that. But something about having your book as a not a workbook, because it isn't, but do you know what I mean? As a kind of structured thing.
I was going to say that. I actually, go on. Sorry.
To do it, to give yourself the time. Because if you didn't have that book and you just said, oh yeah, I'm just going to sit in the garden and doodle or whatever, you just wouldn't do it. You wouldn't allow yourself that time.
Yeah. To have some prompts, but it's not about achieving anything. I mean, I think like a good analogy is meditation. Like, people meditate to feel calm, to feel relaxed, to feel more connected, to feel more aware of their surroundings, to feel more connection to nature. But you don't have a product at the end of it, so there's nothing to judge. But I feel like actually what I discovered about art is that it brings you that same sense of being able to be present and engaged and connected, but you do have a sort of visible an image at the end of it all. But that image, it could be quite a scruffy thing. It could be, if you like, a souvenir of that experience. It could be like notes, or like if we take a photograph, sometimes we're not really present taking the photo, and then we sort of we haven't really enjoyed that beautiful view or that tree. because we've been sort of stuck behind the camera. Whereas if you're drawing, you really look and you really feel a connection with what you're recording and what you're being with. But yeah, it's really not about, you might like the drawing you do at the end. And, like you said, Lewis, I do put skills in there so that you can, feel some, so that you can sort of develop a language and a way in to do that. But yeah, it's so much more about just enjoying the actual experience of connecting through art rather than,
I had
making some wonderful thing at the end.
When I was so actually at the beginning of my little journey with this book, I started, like when you said workbook, and I think it's a really good word to sort of bring up, because this book could easily have had text on the left page, blank page on the right page. I don't know if that's something you that ever crossed your mind, but I actually really, really prefer it with my art being away from this book, because you're an incredible artist, and I definitely would have got disheartened if my crummy little drawings were next to this. Really,
I'm not sure about that.
But they but actually the really nice thing was, I said journey was, I ended up going on holiday with my family and my parents on, I think, week 2. It was I'm trying to find it now. It was the week where I had to scoop up mud. I was invited to scoop up mud and smear it on the page. There we are, week 2. And it went from like, I've been doing this thing and I've been doing it on my own, and I had said to my partner's really good at stuff like this, and I'd said, like, I'm going to do this thing, but she didn't ask me to look at it at all. She didn't ask to look at so separately I've got a watercolor book over there, and she was like, I'm not going to ask you to look at it, because that's not the point. And I was a bit like, yeah, okay, that's cool. And she, because she's great, she just asked things like, how was it today, what did you do, but not asking to say, can I see it? It was just saying like, what was it today, what was your invitation? But then I went on holiday and I was with my parents, and obviously there's all the baggage that comes with being with your parents, but my parents asked to see the thing, and I immediately had that sensation of like, when you're playing and then someone comes and starts observing your playing, and you're just like, this is deeply uncomfortable, I don't want to show you this. Oh, I've shown you, and now I'm immediately having all these feelings of product, and but it doesn't look, but which I think would have been compounded if this book had a blank page for me to do it next to it. But actually what I've realized as I've gone on is, anybody that's asked me about it, and like we sent you some pictures, Emma, because we took the book into our sessions.
Yes,
did it with the kids, and
that
actually
was lovely.
It was really nice to be able to have the prompt here, and then it's like, you can do the art somewhere else, like you can do it in your book, you can do it wherever else, but it's not all on show, if that makes sense.
I guess, like, from what you're saying, it sounds like it might have encouraged that comparing mind, which is the enemy of creativity and relaxation. If you'd had it, because it's not about that at all. The images are there to inspire and to give ideas, but they're certainly not like, and you should do something that looks like this. I really wanted to get away from those more traditional art books, which are like step by step, copy what I do, this is how you paint this particular boat in a harbour or whatever it is.
Well, I think because your book has so much more, before you even start, on every page, before you start talking about, here's the prompt, there's like a really interesting couple of paragraphs about, this is what, I've been exploring this thing, I've just found out about this. So it's almost not the reverse, but that thing where you try and look up a recipe and you have to scroll past someone's life story before you actually get to the recipe.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean.
But I wanted to read the paragraphs, but I wasn't mentally scrolling through to go, okay, what have I got to do? I was like, this is the like paragraphs at the start are the most inspiring bit. And then the prompt, I'm really skim reading the prompt, and I'm just going, charcoal, draw a tree. You're like, yeah, fine, I'm off, right? Because I've been inspired by the first bit.
Well, it's a bit like forest school, maybe. It's a bit like the way that you might sort of make an invitation to take part in any kind of activity, where we often might preface it with like, I just found out the other day about this thing. so do you want to try it? Or like, I just found out about this thing that birds do that I didn't know. Check it out. Like, it's a similar kind of, just an invitation, isn't it? An invitation with a bit of something personal behind it to make it mean something. And it's like, well, you know, I saw value in this, and you might too. That kind of, offering in that way.
It feels like it's like settling me into, because each time you open it up, it's a bit like, I had music teachers in the past who, as soon as you come in, they'd go, right, B flat major, please, if you could crack on with that. And it's like, whoa. Whereas those paragraphs at the start, it's like it's like you're there giving a bit of friendly chat. Like you say, oh, I've just learned this thing. It makes it feel like a very personal book, like a very you know, a very personal journey.
Yeah, it definitely was that. Just me on my own in lockdown, wandering around in the woods every day, listening to the Children of the Forest podcast for company now and then. And trying things out on various students and friends who were available. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you about your sort of nature connection journey, sort of personally. Is it something that's always been, that you've always felt very connected to, or did that grow over lockdown, or how did you arrive in this place where you kind of married nature and art and wanted to write a book about it?
I think I've always felt very connected to it, but I grew up in London and I really wanted to be connected to nature. But, you know, forest schools I was not aware of. I didn't have parents who were sort of, I don't know, who would have known about things like, what was that sort of hippie scouts called? Woodcraft folk, you know, that sort of thing. Yeah. So there was nothing like that sort of available to me. It was a very urban childhood, but I really kind of yearned to have more connection to nature. And my grandparents all lived in Norfolk, and in the summer we used to go and like to stay there for like 2 or 3 weeks for the summer holidays. And I just remember like collecting samphire on the beach and picking blackberries, and so I just have such good associations with nature. And then I don't know, I just kind of never quite managed to really, I don't know, develop that as much as I wanted. But so I went to university and I did art teacher in an urban school, and like I ran like an environment club, and I did quite a lot of environmental campaigning as well. But again, that actually involved getting on a lot of buses and going to London, and do you know what I mean? It's like, and so just like more in the last sort of decade or so, I moved out to Devon for a couple of years, and I got a job as the volunteer garden coordinator for a meditation community called Gaia House. So I was in charge of this big garden, basically learning on the job. I had an allotment in Oxford where I'd lived for a while, and that's how I kind of blagged that job, and that it wasn't paid.
Yeah.
And that was just great, you know, just 2 years living in the country and, you know, observing this beautiful garden, had a little walled garden in the forest, and observing that every day, really getting to know it and learning from all these wise old folks that used to come in who had lots of gardening experience and who were kind of horrified at all the things that I didn't know. And since then I've really sort of carried on with that journey. For example, some of the artists, like the forest bathing guide, Emma Kappa, who's in the book, she's someone whose workshops I have gone along to over the years and really enjoyed learning more from. So I think then, like the last 10 years, I've really been living the dream, in that I have been bringing together my interest in mindfulness and meditation with my interest in art and teaching that. So I moved away from secondary school teaching and started to really teach what I really wanted to teach, you know, to really make it a much more personal offering than what was possible in that school environment. And that's where my first book, Soul Colour, came from, was the bringing together of mindfulness and making art and watercolour. And then the second book, I was like, well, what else do I want to bring? And the other missing piece was this nature connection, which, it feels like very deep and strong for me. It's always been there. But writing the book was an opportunity to interview people, to talk to lots of experts in that field, to talk to other artists who really engage with nature on a deep level. And so, it's definitely been a journey of discovery for me, rather than me being the expert who then just sort of downloads all the information into the book. It was much more of a journey of research and discovery and play.
I feel like I can hear there's a parallel here somewhere between that need, that like, I can't remember how you phrased it earlier, Emma, that like comparison mindset,
comparing minds,
comparing mind, that thing, which obviously exists in art, but then it also, I feel like, it sounds like from your childhood, like it's a similar thing, that like we have this idea that if you are a nature connected person, that you should show that like, do you know what I mean? Like we have to prove our nature connection through, I can name all the birds, or I can light a fire like this, or I'm great at it, rather than it actually being about the strength of your connection with certain experiences. Like nature connection doesn't look like anything, but we kind of attribute this external value to, maybe I won't say I'm a nature connected person because I might get put on the spot. And then for art, that might be like, I might get put on the spot to draw or paint, or I might get put on the spot to name all the lichen or something. You know, there's a similarity there, I think, in not feeling confident in showing skills, but that not actually what it's about.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah.
Do you think that lockdown was really sort of instrumental in this book being born, because we were sort of restricted, as you said earlier, in where we could go, and so you're forced into visiting the same places day after day over a period of time, and therefore that kind of has an influence on your nature connection? Or was the book sort of already mostly done before you?
No, it wasn't actually. So I finished the first book during the first lockdown, and every day, you know, when Boris was saying we could have a walk a day, and I don't always get myself out on the walk, but when it was like you're only allowed out once a day, I was like, right, I'm having my walk every day. And every day I would go out and have that walk, and as you said, like, you know, mainly in the same place. And I used to go quite often with my partner as well, who normally doesn't really walk. And we'd like notice, you know, every day everything's changing a little bit, you know, the colour of the leaves is changing a little bit, the blossom is nearly out, the blossom is out. Just like observing that was so lovely and so connecting. And seeing a lot of other people also valuing being in nature more and just slowing down and taking the time to really appreciate it and notice it.
Yeah.
So I got really interested in how supportive and healing to mental health that can be.
Yeah.
Emma, I was going to ask you one of the things. Actually, no, I'm going to come on to that one later. I wanted to ask you if there were any pages that you wrote for this book that didn't make it. Like, did you have any like, this exercise is like incredible? Like, can I actually, maybe before we do that, can I tell you some of my favorite days?
Yeah, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, because Wem and I both sort of lit up at the Earth Protectors, which is a guest artist one. I'm holding it up like it's your, like, you don't know, it's your book. For people, so I think people will be familiar with like seed bombs, you know, that idea of mushing it all up and putting all the seeds in clay, and it's just taking it that step forwards and making the clay into the shape of, well, the example here is a little sleeping person who's just all curled up, and then you're leaving that little person, and there's something, that's such a tiny next step, you know, just to go, this is a seed bomb, let's put it on there. I was like, oh, but this changes it so much. This goes from, seed bombs, chuck them in, to like, you know, I've done this with my children, and it was like, right, putting it down and putting and saying goodnight, and where are they going to want to sleep? And incredible. I really liked Tree Spirits, this one, drawing all the gnarly people. And there was one towards the end. I mean, as we said, it's a journey like this of like, it's all logical steps. I think if you'd started with, because week 8 is Soul and Cosmos, which is a fairly hefty chapter, it must be said. By the time you get there, it's a bit like, oh, okay, I'm definitely doing things. Where was the one? So it was a wilderness experiment, just the like drawing with wax and getting the forest to come back, and it just felt very like, the word you've used on this page is resist
Mhm.
techniques. But I think similar to like that feeling of lockdown, it was like resilience, like it's not
Mhm.
going away. This stuff is there. It was a really positive way to like end sort of bring that journey to a like, this stuff's going to carry on. So yeah, so actually I'll go back to my question of like, were there any pages that you were like, oh, I wish I could have put that in, or I came up with this great one but it didn't quite work as a page? Or
I actually don't think there was particularly. I'm trying to think if I had any sort of great outtakes or anything. But yeah, I mean, my editor didn't sort of want to get rid of anything. I think there was a lot more I would have liked to have written, but I was like, oh my gosh, I've written way too much, and I probably should have actually cut more, to be honest. But I couldn't quite
perfect.
tell until I put it all together on the page, by which time it was like a little bit late because the editor had already been through the text and like approved it, and I wasn't allowed to change it. But I would actually have probably cut more, because there are times where I'm, saying a lot and it's quite a lot to read. So yeah, I think if anything, it might have been, the book could have done with being pared down a bit, and maybe I could have taken a bit more out. But yeah, I don't think there really was anything that I really wanted to put in but didn't make it. Yeah.
I wanted to ask, so you mentioned the young person that you're working with over lockdown who was doing their A-levels. Did you work with any other younger people at any point in this book's sort of
I did experiment a little bit with some friends' small children, but yeah, not hugely. I mean, the book is aimed at young adults and older people.
Yeah,
adults.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious, because I know that you work with younger folks, and I'm really curious to know how that went actually. So I'd love to hear.
Yeah. Well, the one of the most memorable session that we sent you the picture of was, again, like the sort of process I just described, in terms of one of us going, I've been doing this thing, do you guys want to hear about it and maybe have a look, and then if you want to do it, you can do some sort of thing. So Lewis, you brought and did, what's it, is there a special name for it, with the water and
it's the one where you put the water on first, you sort of paint with the water first.
Wet technique with watercolor. So you make the paper wet and then you float the paint into it, let the water
and none of
what happens.
None of the kids had done that before. I'm really interested in the effects, and then we just got loads of paper and paint and just left it on the table all day, and some kids were really into it and wanted to do it straight away. Other people weren't, they were busy doing other things, but then would come back to it, and then we would as you say, we were letting the pigment kind of just do what it wanted to do, and then finding that it looked like things and turning the shapes into different animals or whatever it reminded us of. And some people stayed with it for ages, and that's in that kind of way that we've been talking about. It's not something you can fail at. It's not like, oh, mine didn't work. It's like, oh, that's an interesting effect, I can turn it into this or whatever. I think probably at some point somebody probably just did get the black and just paint the black over everything. That tends to be what happens with every single child.
Well, actually, this was my question. This was one of my questions, Emma. I was going to ask you, just as with like an art teacher's hat on, I've created, I think, my own terms, which is hypo-reverence and hyper-reverence, which is that thing of like, some children have, or learners in general have that need to like Wem says, get the black towards the end. It just almost, it feels like the fact that it's making a thing becomes too much, and it just goes like, I've got to break this because
and now black
and now black, and more and more and more, and then there's
rips,
but then there's the other end, which is, I feel like the other end is more, the hyper reverent is more conducive to, I'm using air quotes here now, like normal teaching, in classroom teaching, that thing of like, and I've done this myself, like, everybody put your hands on your head, I'm going to collect these pieces of paper, do not fucking touch your right, hands up like this, right, I'm going to walk around, I'm going to put them on the art rack, we're not going to move, we're not going to touch, like, and some children have that then built into them, don't they? That or maybe not built into them, but some children respond in that way to like making an art thing. I just wondered what your experiences were with those, like, students you've worked with, young or adult, how you navigate those kind of experiences.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? I think, I mean, so I've worked with mainly older children from year 7 up, so 11-year-olds upwards, and the sort of covering everything in black thing doesn't tend to happen so much. But for me, it's always, I've always felt like the emphasis needs to be on this is a learning process. So treat it a bit, more like a science experiment, like you were saying, when like what happens when you just let the pigment float around in the water and you just notice what happens. And if at the end of that you have the urge to scribble all over it in black, then that's fine. That's what you feel the urge to do. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely, especially as people get older, as children grow up, and there is a real sort of fear, isn't there, that comes in around, I don't want to mess it up, I don't want it to be, I don't want it to go wrong. And also, like, this is quite sad, like when I worked with older people, like people who are mainly retired, there was a lot of like, is it good enough? Should I just give up? It was really sad, and I could sort of hear the children in them. I could hear the same voices that I would hear, from teenagers, and it's a sort of creeping self-consciousness and self-judgment that comes in. And I think it's very much in the culture, isn't it? It isn't just about art or about nature connection or anything really. It's about is it in the culture? Is it something that just happens? But we tend to become more afraid and more self-critical and less willing to just be spontaneously creative. And
there's definitely a trend.
A lot of my teaching is about undoing that. It's all about trying to find ways to notice when that's going on and unravel it or step around it or find imaginative ways to not let it take over, that comparing judgmental part of ourselves that is so unconducive to creativity.
I was going to say, I think there's something to do with, and you do not sidestep it, but like it feels like the book catches it every now and again, which is like, as we get older through the school system, normally the quality of the materials we're given raises. And I've heard some people saying, actually one of the things that does learners the most disservice is the fact that we give 3-year-olds the cheapest, crappiest poster paints, and then they produce splodgy things, and then we go, well, okay, try harder. But there's something about, as we get older, being given more high value resources that then we feel like the output has to be worthy of the fact that those resources have gone in. I think, and like the consuming them for the sake of consuming them, for the sake of play, for the sake of an experiment. Partly we probably feel it internally, but probably also as stretched school budgets, and you're standing at the front with, I'm thinking in a classroom example now, you've got 30 children and you're going, these are my watercolors for the year. If you pour that whole jug all over them, or if you go and use all the green today, and that affects then how you interact with the learner and their process.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of classic. You could write down all the reasons why you don't feel able to paint in a free and spontaneous and relaxed way, and they would be, don't waste paper, don't waste materials, don't get yourself told off, don't draw something inappropriate by accident. There's so many things that we learn.
But I really like in the book that there are regularly things that don't involve any resources, painting with a bit of mud, or just going out and arranging things on the ground, or doing that stuff that, like, it just takes one of those elements out, which then gives you a space maybe to reflect on, why did I feel this way about this art? Why didn't I feel this way about this art? My big one at the moment, I'm just going to have a minor gripe. It's going to be therapy now. I'm sorry, Emma. Actually, when was there? And you laughed at me because I said to my daughter, if you do all the things I'm doing, I don't end up doing any of my things. because she's so keen to help with everything I'm doing that there's no task that she won't see me doing and go, I help you with that, I do that. And like so it might be, you know, getting things out in the woods, or it might be tying stuff up, or, you know, we've been camping and she wanted to help with she's 3, so she wanted to step with every step of putting the tent up. She needed to be involved. And it was really interesting her then saying, like, I could do some of that painting for you, like as and just trying to go, oh, there's a lot of feelings here right now, mate, and I don't know how to explain them to you. You know, it's just a weird, you know, there's so much going on there. And it kind of actually the fact that the book, you know, some of it was mud, some of it was arranging, it was a really nice way to just go, oh, okay, this is this one could be a collaborative process. Go on, smear your hand on. And actually those have ended up being some of my more favorite, you know, they feel different when I look at those pages, you know. Did you think about doing anything? You know, this book is all kind of like one person and very, like, I don't want to say it's inward looking, because it's not, it's outward looking, it's about nature, but it's one person's connection with nature. Did you have anything where you sort of thought about doing collaborative things, or?
There is one collaborative exercise.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, right at the end, I think in the last chapter, where it's a suggestion that you do a painting with somebody else. So you swap around and you take turns on 2 paintings. Because that does also, like you said, with your daughter, it takes away some of the preciousness about this is me making my thing that represents something about me. And it becomes much more of a dialogue or an exploration between 2 people in connection with nature and what they're observing. You know, a really lovely kind of weaving. So I really enjoyed doing that. It was a bit more challenging because of lockdown, you know, to do too many of those things. But it was lovely sitting and painting with this friend and doing that collaborative thing. I mean, interesting actually, quite a few of the sort of more out in the woods or using natural materials, I did do either with my student who's called Anna, or with sometimes other artists or people I was on a walk with. So yeah, perhaps I could have made a bit more of that. Yeah.
Well, it works very well as a book, because I think if it was much more, I think it might start to feel like you could do it. Maybe that's are you doing a sequel? Is it Earth Color 2?
I don't know. I haven't sort of been struck with inspiration for number 3, but I feel like it needs to be a trilogy. So I'll let you know if you have any good ideas. Yeah. I'm not quite sure what I want to do for the 3rd.
Well, whatever it is, my daughter would love to help you with it.
Great.
Yeah.
If she has any good ideas, let me know.
Pink. A lot of purple.
Purple. Well, yes, pink about. Well, she did say yesterday. She's very poetic. She said yesterday, my ice cream tastes like the perfect colors of the rainbow.
Wow.
Sounds like a good ice cream.
Hippie kids, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I would definitely, if anyone listening to this podcast is thinking, oh, is this book for me? I'd say if you're a kind of forest schooly, outdoorsy practitioner, even if you're not, but if you are, I think even though, as you say, the book is kind of aimed towards adults rather than things that you can do specifically with children or young people or groups, I'm sort of enjoying it. I'm still working through it, and I'm enjoying it as a kind of springboard and as a confidence building and inspiring kind of resource to go, okay, well, like for example, one of the really simple ones near the beginning is about sitting and observing something in nature and drawing without taking your pencil or charcoal or whatever off the page, and then looking at it, and that being a way to connect with nature that I think is really accessible. And once you've played it and done that yourself, that is really transferable to inviting a learner to do it, either just, you know, because you see that they're doing something in that vein anyway, or as a kind of like little group activity at the beginning of the session. And there are lots of little things in there that, because I found more inspired to do arty things or to follow that train of thought with learners in the woods since working with the book. So and I think that's a really important part of what we're doing in the UK, at least in forest school, is about creativity and is about art. And it's one of the places, you know, it's becoming narrower and narrower and narrower, the opportunities to do that for children if they're in school. and even outside of school, you know, like there used to be a lot more kind of opportunities to do pottery and people who had kilns and all those kind of things, and those things seem to have just closed or not available anymore. So I think that is a real gift that we can give to learners, to give them that opportunity. And if we feel like we're ready to go, oh, let's experiment with art, I think it's a real gift that we can give to them.
That's really great to hear, because, you know, I did have that in mind, but also it would be a book that educators and practitioners who work with children could use, or children and adults. And I wasn't sure with small children. I don't think all the exercises would work, but I definitely think a lot of them would or could be easily adapted. So that's really great to hear that from you, and to hear that you also think that could work. Yeah.
Great. Right. Well, thank you so much for chatting with us this evening, and thank you for the books and for making the books. And let me say, we'll look forward when the next one's coming. But where can people find out about what you're up to now, and where can people find?
Well, I have a website, which is emmaburley.com, which is spelled BURLEIGH. Maybe you guys can put a link or something in the podcast. Yeah, that'd be great. I can send you my details. Great.
Well, that's been lovely. Thank you so much. We'll keep sending.
It's so nice to meet you. It's really amazing to see what you look like.
Yeah, these are our faces.
Sort of visualization of someone from their voice, and then it's like slightly strange because you weren't quite exactly how I imagined, although you are quite similar.
We look exactly like the cartoons.
Exactly. Yeah.
Great. Well, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Emma.
Really nice to meet you both.
You too.
Great. Cheers then. Bye.
Bye.